Hey guys, Dr. Morse Injury Experts. We just finished up the Sunday night slate of week 2. It's about midnight here on the East Coast, and we're doing our weekly injury wrap-up. Now, there was a ton of injuries today, the most we've had in a while, even dating back to mid last season. And some of the injuries were significant. Big name players, big name injuries. And it's tough. I've already got almost 50 guys on my list that are currently dealing with it, not including the IR guys and a bunch of others. So I usually do this by kind of going through the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. We saw Tua Tagovailoa suffer a significant concussion with some fencing response on Thursday night down here in Miami. It was reported today that he is not going to retire. He's going to follow the advice of his doctors, and whenever he is medically cleared to return, then he will return to the field. Now, that's his decision, and that's fine. The question becomes, when is he eligible to return? My guess is as minimum as 2 weeks, but I would not be surprised if it's 4 weeks or even season ending. This really could fluctuate depending on how the physicians and neurologists decide where his pre-base level line is and when he finally comes out of it. It took him almost 3 months to clear his last concussion protocol. Were they slow playing that? I don't know, but we'll have to see how this is. Skylar Thompson will be the guy who picks it up in the meantime, and this will have likely a dramatic effect on the remaining of the offense. Another quarterback that got injured today, this one hasn't been confirmed yet, but I was watching the game and it looked like Anthony Richardson grabbed the back of his hamstring when he was running. We'll see if it could be nothing, but something to keep an eye on over the next couple of days. Jayden Daniels took a huge shot to the ribs on the right side, missed only one play, and then came back in the game and actually had a pretty good game. So it may not be nothing, but these usually have a tendency to linger and are quite painful. Justin Herbert, I got a notification that he left the game with a leg injury, went into the blue tent, but ended up, I think, going back into the game. So I don't have any details on this, but we'll have to see if this is anything significant. As an update, Jordan Love was not allowed to play today. He'll probably come back in week 5, they said, which is appropriate for his knee injury. Josh Allen didn't have the best game on Thursday, but didn't really need to. He was dealing with that left hand injury. He'd be fine. And then Russell Wilson, again, still out with that calf injury, and right now they keep winning with Justin Fields. So rolling over to running backs, there was a couple big running back injuries today. The biggest, from what I can tell so far, is Isiah Pacheco. Had a fantastic game. He was rolled up and he basically kind of leaned onto himself, and as a result, his leg kind of took an awkward angle, and he was seen leaving the game in crutches and a boot. And then we heard rumblings from Mike Florio at halftime of the Sunday Night Football game that they're concerned about a fibula injury. So fibula injury usually means a fracture of the fibula that can be in 3 different spots, kind of up towards the knee, mid body of the fibula, or towards the ankle. The fibula is a small bone on the outside of the leg. It holds about 15 to 20% of your body weight, and is very important for stabilizing the ankle joint. So if he does end up needing surgery, or if he got lucky and doesn't need surgery, he's still going to miss about a month because it just takes that long to heal. This is similar to Tank Dell and similar to Mark Andrews, just depending on if there's any other potential side effect injuries associated with this. So this could be a potentially big injury. I hope it's a minor, but from initially that's my concern. Rachaad White left with a groin strain. I believe he returned, but just did not have a good game. They had a tough matchup today on the ground against Detroit, and I think there's a chance he might miss next week. Well, it just depends on how much this flares up over the next week or so. Joe Mixon, as we watched tonight's game, suffered I believe it was a right medial ankle injury. This is not a common injury. This could be a high ankle sprain. It just really depends on where the force is. Where medial ankle is really hard to injure. It's the inside of your ankle, and he did come back into the game very briefly, but they pulled him out. Cam Akers came in and then ended up fumbling on the goal line. and then they even brought in Nkumbuale, I think is how it's pronounced. So if Mixon was healthy enough, he would have been in the game. This game was way closer than I thought it was going to be. So definitely something to monitor. If this is a high ankle or a medial ankle, this could be potentially concerning. These are frustrating injuries, especially for running backs. So we'll have to see what the imaging shows, and we'll kind of get a gauge over the next couple of days. Tyjae Spears left with an ankle injury, but I do not have any more details. That's all I know. I looked for the video, but I couldn't find it. Jeff Wilson Jr. strained his oblique on Thursday night. Sounds like it's relatively mild, and he could potentially even play in week 3. We saw Achane go absolutely nuclear and didn't even look like he was injured. Hopefully that can continue. And then Raheem Mostert obviously did not play this week with a chest injury. Maybe he comes back next week. Tank Bigsby suffered a shoulder injury and was immediately pretty much ruled out of the game. I don't think he got a single touch the entire game, which basically tells me this is a potentially significant injury. Anything from a shoulder dislocation to a bad AC sprain. But if it was a mild sprain, he probably would have been back in the game. So that tells me, and I think it was pretty early in the game too. So something to potentially keep an eye on. And then Pierre Strong, the backup to Jerome Ford, and Donta Foreman strained his hamstring, so there may be a little bit more of a concentrated backfield there in Cleveland. Kenneth Walker obviously missed the game today, could potentially miss 1 or 2 more games depending on if this is a re-injury of that same oblique from last year. Jaylen Warren did a little bit better today. Marshawn Lloyd made a debut, and man, did Josh Jacobs look good. Christian McCaffrey, obviously we heard yesterday that he is going on IR, secondary to his Achilles tendonitis as well as the calf strain. Now it's important to understand that Achilles tendonitis is a predisposition to Achilles tear. This is exactly what happened to Dre Greenlaw of the San Francisco 49ers last year, right around Super Bowl time. So you have to understand they have to take this very carefully. 4, 6, 8 weeks before they finally are comfortable improving the quality of that tendon before they allow him back in the game. Jordan Mason went nuclear today again, and Guarendo would be the backup. So those are the guys. Unfortunately, McCaffrey's going to miss close to half the season, at least more than half the fantasy season. Rotating over to wide receivers, Justin Jefferson had a huge day on only a couple targets, but ended up getting whiplash or leg whipped into his, I think it was his right quad. This can fill up with blood. This can be annoying and a bad contusion. I think they caught it in time. They did not allow him to return, and there's a good chance he'll be fine for week 3, but definitely something to monitor. He might not be able to go 100% full force next week because of the way that the quad interacts with blood, and it can be a little uncomfortable to really push it that quickly. Cooper Kupp unfortunately suffered what appears to be a left high ankle sprain after getting tackled from behind, a la hip drop tackle, a very similar one. This is the opposite ankle that he suffered 2 years ago. They were getting blown out, so I don't even know if it was really realistic for him to return. He left in a boot, which is not surprising. Hopefully this is relatively mild because they just lost Puka for probably about 8 weeks last week. And this team just got blew out. They just got toasted. So we weren't going to see Cooper Kupp come back, even if this was super mild. We should hear following an update tomorrow. But this was unfortunately the risk with Cooper Kupp. He's 31. He has a history of multiple injuries to the lower extremity, including an ACL and a high ankle that has both required surgery. And now he is potentially going to miss at least 2 up to 4 weeks with a high ankle of the left side. A.J. Brown was scratched basically yesterday, in my opinion, but formally this morning with a hamstring strain he suffered either Thursday or Friday that is going to put week 3 in jeopardy. Amon-Ra St. Brown initially tweaked his quad, but it came back and it looked like he tweaked his left MCL. Hopefully he got lucky, kind of like Rome Odunze, who played tonight after suffering one last week. I don't think his ACL was compromised. Just based on the video, it didn't look overly concerning, and the team sounded like they were relatively supportive and reassuring. But Amon-Ra could potentially suit up next week, just depending on what we're looking at here. Jordan Addison, missed the game with an ankle. Keenan Allen confirmed to have plantar fasciitis of the right foot. this is going to wax and wane. He could potentially return next week. Dunze did okay tonight. Jaden Reed played. Jameson Williams did not have any issues with that ankle injury at all. Joshua Palmer re-injured that knee, I think, a little bit. Lockett did okay. Josh Downs ended up getting scratched and did not come back from his high ankle sprain today. T. Higgins, again, was scratched, and Roman Wilson was not allowed to play in his potentially first game back from his high ankle. Heading over to the tight ends, Evan Engram strained his hamstring in pregame, unfortunately, and left all of us scrambling. He could potentially be out a couple weeks, just depending on how bad this is. It seems like these tight ends take a little bit longer, and obviously he's a pretty big name. We saw BTJ have a couple big catches, and then Kirk had a couple of good catches, but they didn't look very good. Taysom Hill suffered a chest injury and had to be brought to the hospital. That usually tells me it's a rib fracture with potential injury to an organ. That's usually why they're sending him. Either it's a lung or spleen or liver, or something that was potentially lacerated. We'll have to see exactly how this plays out. The Saints are on fire. They've scored in every single possession so far this season, and they put a whooping on the Cowboys, which was impressive. Dalton Schultz played tonight. He looked okay. Jake Ferguson is out this week, possibly next week with that MCL sprain of his knee, and Njoku probably a couple weeks with his high ankle sprain. We did see Joey Bosa potentially with a high ankle sprain, but I haven't seen any updates on him. If you like this type of content, do me a favor, smash a thumbs up, subscribe, and check out some of the other videos and the catalog that we have on YouTube, as well as sign up for a free account on theinjuryexperts.com, and you can follow the injury report weekly. That is the most up-to-date you will find because it is updated by myself. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you during the week for some updated videos.